What if I told you that the same technology big tech claims is designed to show you better shoe ads is actually a sophisticated surveillance weapon that tracks your every move, predicts your behavior, and sells your most intimate secrets to the highest bidder? We found the patent. Not speculation, not theory, an actual filed patent that reveals how these companies engineered a system to extract, weaponize, and monetize your private life under the innocent label of personalized advertising. This isn't about cookies or targeted marketing. This is about a deliberate, systematic scheme to turn your phone into a tracking device, your search history into a psychological profile, and your daily routine into a commodity worth billions. The patent doesn't lie. The architects of this system documented exactly how they planned to exploit you. And when one lawyer decided to fight back, he uncovered a conspiracy that goes deeper than anyone imagined. This is that story. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The conference room was quiet except for the soft hum of the recording equipment. Faith Gilbert leaned forward, her notebook open, pen poised. She had interviewed dozens of lawyers over her career, but something about this case felt different. The weight of it hung in the air before anyone even spoke. So, Mike, let me start with the obvious question. Everyone knows big tech collects data. Everyone knows they track us. Why is this case different? Mike looked up from the folder in front of him, a thin smile crossing his face. It wasn't amusement. It was the expression of someone who had seen something they couldn't unsee. Because we have proof, not allegations, not suspicions, actual documented proof of intent, a patent filed by one of the largest tech companies in the world that explicitly describes how to build what they call a behavioral prediction and manipulation system. They didn't hide it. They filed it with the patent office. They put it in writing. Walk me through how you even discovered this. My client, Matthew Moore, came to me 6 months ago. He's a data analyst, worked in advertising for years. Smart guy, understands how digital marketing works. But something started happening to him that he couldn't explain. He noticed that ads weren't just following him online. They were anticipating him. He'd think about booking a vacation, not search for it, just think about it, and within hours his feed would be flooded with resort packages to the exact destination he had in mind. That could be coincidence. That's what he thought at first. But then it got stranger. He was going through a divorce, hadn't told anyone except his lawyer. Suddenly, he's getting ads for divorce attorneys, therapy services, and apartment rentals in his area. He hadn't searched for any of it, hadn't texted about it, hadn't posted about it. The only conversations he'd had were in person or over encrypted calls. Faith's pen stopped moving. How is that even possible? That's what Matthew wanted to know. So he started digging. He spent months reverse engineering the tracking systems, analyzing the data flows, following the digital breadcrumbs. And that's when he found it. Patent US 2019 028478. Filed by Victor Malone, Chief Technology Officer at one of the biggest tech platforms in the world. The patent describes, in technical detail, a system that doesn't just track what you do online. It tracks your physical movements, your voice patterns, your purchasing rhythms, even your biometric data from connected devices. Then it feeds all of that into a machine learning algorithm designed to predict your future behavior and emotional state. Predict future behavior? You mean like what you might buy next? Mike shook his head slowly. I mean, what you might think next, what you might feel next. The patent specifically mentions using this predictive model to serve ads at moments of maximum psychological vulnerability. When you're stressed, when you're sad, when you're making impulsive decisions, it's not about showing you products you want. It's about manipulating you into wanting products at the exact moment you're least able to resist. Faith put her pen down. That's not advertising. That's psychological warfare. Exactly. And here's the part that made Matthew walk into my office. The part that turned this from a privacy concern into a legal case. Mike opened the folder and pulled out a single document. 3 weeks after Matthew discovered the patent, he lost his job. No warning, no explanation. And the company that fired him? They'd just signed a major data sharing agreement with the same tech platform that filed the patent. The silence stretched between them. You're saying they retaliated against him? I'm saying that when you build a system powerful enough to predict human behavior, you also build a system powerful enough to punish the people who expose it. And Matthew Moore is about to find out just how far they'll go to protect their secret. What happened to Matthew after he was fired? And what did the tech company do when they realized someone had found their patent? Quick pause. Before we continue, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? If you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit subscribe, because tomorrow's episode is absolutely mind-blowing. Faith took a moment to process what she'd just heard. The implications were staggering. Okay, so Matthew gets fired. What happens next? What happens next is where this case goes from concerning to terrifying. Matthew did what any reasonable person would do. He filed a wrongful termination suit against his former employer. Standard case, nothing unusual. But within 48 hours of filing, strange things started happening to him. Strange how? His credit score dropped 100 points overnight. No explanation, no missed payments, no new debt, just a sudden algorithmic decision that he was now a credit risk. Then his health insurance claim for a routine surgery got denied. Same thing, no explanation, just a computer-generated letter saying his procedure was classified as elective. His bank flagged his account for suspicious activity and froze his assets. His dating profile was shadow banned. His social media reach dropped to almost zero. Every digital system he interacted with suddenly turned against him. Faith's eyes widened. All at once. All within a week. Now, you might say that's coincidence, bad luck, technical glitches. But Matthew is a data analyst. He knows how these systems work. So he started documenting everything, cross-referencing the timing, tracking the digital fingerprints, and he found something that should be impossible. Mike pulled out another document, this one dense with technical diagrams and code snippets. Every single system that targeted him, the credit bureau, the insurance company, the bank, the social platforms, they all used the same underlying data verification API. And that API, it's provided by the same tech company that holds the patent, the same company whose data-sharing partner have fired him. Wait, you're saying this tech company has access to his credit score, his insurance, his banking information? Not just access, control. The patent describes something they call a universal identity resolution system. Essentially, they've built a master profile for billions of people by connecting data from thousands of sources. Every app you use, every website you visit, every smart device in your home, they're all feeding information into this central system. And once they have that master profile, they can push updates to any connected platform. They can tell a credit bureau you're a risk. They can tell an insurance algorithm to deny your claims. They can tell a bank to freeze your assets. All of it automated, all of it invisible, all of it technically legal, because you agreed to the terms of service. But Matthew didn't agree to be systematically destroyed. No, he didn't, and that's what makes this a legal case. See, the patent isn't just about advertising. It includes a section on reputation management and threat mitigation. It explicitly describes using the behavioral prediction system to identify potential threats to the platform, people who might expose problems, whistleblowers, critics, and then deploying what they call corrective interventions. Faith leaned back in her chair. Corrective interventions. They're using corporate speak to describe ruining someone's life. Exactly. And here's where it gets even worse. Matthew wasn't the first. Once I started digging into this, I found 14 other cases over the past 3 years, all of them people who worked in tech, who discovered something problematic about data collection or algorithmic bias, who raised concerns internally or publicly, and all of them experienced the same pattern: sudden employment termination, followed by a cascade of digital system failures that destroyed their credit, their insurance, their financial stability, their online presence. 14 people. That's not a coincidence. No, it's not. It's a pattern. And patterns can be proven in court. But here's the problem we're facing. Mike's expression darkened. Victor Malone, the man who filed the patent, he's not just some engineer. He's the chief technology officer of a company worth $2 trillion. He has unlimited resources, an army of lawyers, and most importantly, he has leverage over almost every digital system we use. When Matthew filed his wrongful termination suit, it took 3 days for Malone's legal team to file a motion to dismiss. But they didn't just argue the case. They started deploying the same corrective interventions against Matthew's legal support network. What do you mean? I mean my law firm's website mysteriously dropped off Google search results. Our client communication platform experienced unprecedented technical difficulties. 2 of my paralegals had their professional licenses flagged for review based on anonymous complaints. Our expert witnesses started receiving threatening messages through encrypted channels. And Matthew himself? His testimony was going to be the foundation of our case. But now we have a bigger problem. Faith's voice dropped. What problem? Mike met her eyes. Matthew Moore disappeared 3 days ago. No one has seen him. No one has heard from him. His phone is off. His apartment is empty. And every digital trace of his existence is being systematically erased from the internet. Where is Matthew Moore? And what did Victor Malone's company do to make him vanish? The weight of those words hung in the air. Faith's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass. You're telling me a man who exposed corporate surveillance just vanished, and you think the company made it happen? I'm telling you that 72 hours ago, Matthew Moore sent me an encrypted message at 11:47 p.m. It said, "Found the real scope. It's not just commercial. Call me." I tried calling. The number was disconnected. I went to his apartment the next morning. The landlord said he'd moved out in the middle of the night, paid his lease termination in cash, left no forwarding address. I checked with his family. They haven't heard from him. His bank account shows a final withdrawal of $8,000 from an ATM in Nevada. And then nothing. Did you go to the police? Mike's laugh was bitter. You mean the same police department that uses facial recognition software provided by Victor Malone's company? The same department whose entire digital infrastructure runs on their cloud services? I filed a missing persons report. It was closed within 6 hours. The detective told me that Matthew had clearly chosen to leave, that there was no evidence of foul play, and that I should respect his privacy. But you don't believe he left voluntarily? No, I don't, because 3 hours after that police report was closed, I received a package. No return address, no postmark, just a manila envelope left at my office's front desk. Security cameras showed nothing. The person who dropped it off knew exactly where the blind spots were. Faith leaned forward. What was in the package? Mike reached into his briefcase and pulled out a USB drive, placing it carefully on the table between them. This, and a handwritten note that said, "They're listening to everything. The patent is just what they admit to. The real system is much bigger. Trust no digital communication. I'm going dark until I can prove it. Keep fighting." Matthew. What's on the drive? That's where this case transforms from corporate malfeasance into something that threatens the foundation of our legal system itself. Mike's voice was steady, but there was an edge to it now. The drive contains internal communications from Victor Malone's company, emails, strategy documents, technical specifications. Matthew must have downloaded them before he disappeared. And what they reveal is that the behavioral prediction system isn't just being used for advertising or reputation management. What else is it being used for? Jury selection, judicial influence, political manipulation. Mike let each word land with full weight. The documents show that for the past 4 years, Victor Malone's company has been running a program called Project Themis, named after the Greek goddess of divine law. The program uses their surveillance and prediction system to build psychological profiles of judges, jurors, and lawyers involved in cases that could threaten their business interests. Faith's face went pale. They're rigging trials? Not directly. That would be too obvious. But they're doing something almost more insidious. They're using predictive algorithms to determine which judges are most likely to rule in their favor, then using their control over court scheduling systems to ensure their cases end up before those judges. They're analyzing jury pool data to predict which potential jurors would be sympathetic to corporate defendants, then using targeted ads and content to prime those jurors with pro-business messaging before they ever step into a courtroom. They're monitoring opposing counsel's digital behavior to predict their legal strategies, then adapting their own approach in real time. That can't be legal. It's not. But proving it requires evidence that's held on servers controlled by the very company we're trying to prosecute. And here's the real problem. Mike's expression hardened. According to the documents on this drive, Project Themis has already been deployed in 127 federal cases over the past 4 years, cases involving antitrust violations, privacy laws, labor disputes, environmental regulations, every major legal threat to big tech companies. And their success rate is 89%. 89%? That's impossible unless the system actually works. It works. And 3 of those 127 cases They were lawsuits filed by people who discovered the behavioral prediction patent and tried to fight back. All 3 cases were dismissed before they reached trial. All 3 plaintiffs experienced the same pattern of digital system failures that Matthew did, and all 3 of them, within 6 months of their cases being dismissed, left the country. One moved to Portugal, one to Thailand, one to Argentina, all of them citing personal reasons, all of them unreachable, all of them effectively silenced. Faith was quiet for a long moment. So, what makes you think you can win when 3 other people already lost? Because Matthew found something they didn't, something that Victor Malone clearly didn't want anyone to see, which is why Matthew had to disappear. Mike gestured to the USB drive. Buried in these documents is evidence that Project Themis was tested on a Supreme Court case last year, a case that would have forced tech companies to give users control over their own data. The court ruled 5-4 in favor of the tech companies. According to the internal communications, Project Themis predicted that exact votes split with 97% confidence 3 months before arguments were even heard. The implications crashed over faith like a wave. If they can influence the Supreme Court, they can influence anything. Exactly, and that's why Matthew's message said the patent is just what they admit to. The behavioral prediction system, the surveillance infrastructure, the manipulation tactics, those are bad enough. But Project Themis represents something else entirely. It's the weaponization of data to subvert the legal system itself. And if they're willing to make Matthew disappear to protect that secret, if they're willing to make me disappear, what else are they willing to do? Before Faith could respond, Mike's phone vibrated on the table. He glanced at the screen, and his face went white. "What is it?" Mike turned the phone so she could see. It was a text from an unknown number. No words, just a photo. The image showed Matthew Moore standing on what appeared to be a beach, very much alive, holding today's newspaper, but his eyes told a different story. They weren't the eyes of someone on vacation. They were the eyes of someone sending a warning, and written in the sand at his feet, barely visible in the photo, were 3 words. They found me. Matthew is alive, but clearly in danger. Who found him? And what will Victor Malone's company do now that they know Mike has the evidence on the USB drive? Faith stared at the photo on Mike's phone, her journalistic instincts battling with genuine fear. We need to call someone. The FBI, Interpol, someone who can help him. Call them with what? A phone that's probably being monitored right now? Through systems that Victor Malone's company provides data services for? Mike's voice was controlled, but his jaw was tight. The moment Matthew sent this photo, he told us 2 things. First, that they tracked him down despite him going completely off-grid. Second, that he's using his last bit of freedom to warn us that we're next. So, what do we do? Mike stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. We do the one thing they don't expect. We go public. Right now, before they can stop us. Mike, you're a lawyer. You know that's not how this works. You need time to build a case, file motions, present evidence in court. Faith, there is no court that can hear this case fairly. That's what Project Themis proves. They've corrupted the entire system. He turned back to face her. But there's something they can't corrupt. Public outrage. If enough people know what's happening, if the evidence is out there for everyone to see, they can't make it disappear. They can't dismiss it. They can't algorithm their way out of millions of people demanding answers. Faith's mind was racing. You want me to publish this story based on documents from a USB drive that could be fabricated, from a source who's now missing? My editors would never run it without verification. Then we verify it. Live. On camera. Right now. Mike pulled out his laptop and opened it. Everything Matthew downloaded is time-stamped, digitally signed, traceable to Victor Malone's company servers. The patent is public record. The 127 cases where Project Themis was deployed, those are all public record too. We can cross-reference the data in real time and show that the patterns are impossible to explain any other way. And what happens when Victor Malone's legal team comes after us? Let them, because here's what Matthew figured out before he disappeared, the thing that made him go dark in the first place. Mike pulled up a document on his screen. Project Themis wasn't just deployed in corporate cases, it was tested on criminal trials, specifically trials involving people who threatened the tech industry's interests, activists, whistleblowers, investigative journalists. Faith felt her blood run cold. Journalists. 3 reporters over the past 2 years. All of them were investigating big tech's data practices. All of them ended up facing criminal charges, hacking, unauthorized access to computer systems, conspiracy. And all 3 cases went to trial in jurisdictions where Project Themis had been deployed. All 3 were convicted. But if they were convicted, that means they actually committed crimes. Does it? Or does it mean that Victor Malone's company identified them as threats, predicted which judges and juries would be most likely to convict them, manipulated those trials behind the scenes, and then used their convictions to send a message to every other journalist who might consider exposing them? Mike's voice was hard now. One of those reporters is currently serving 8 years in federal prison. Her name is Luna Stevens, and according to the Project Themis documents, her case was flagged as a priority target because she was close to discovering the behavioral prediction system. Faith stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is insane. If what you're saying is true, if they can manipulate trials, imprison journalists, make people disappear, then going public doesn't protect us. It makes us the next targets. We're already targets, Faith. The moment you walked into this office to interview me about this case, the moment your producer scheduled this recording, their systems flagged you. They know you're here. They know we're talking. And they're already building a profile, predicting what you'll do, preparing their response. How can you possibly know that? Mike pulled up another file on his laptop, turning the screen toward her. It showed a data visualization, complex networks of connections, and information flows. Because I've been monitoring their system for the past week, after Matthew disappeared, I used the information on his drive to access some of their external APIs. I can't get into their servers, but I can see the data requests going in and out. And 3 hours ago, right after you entered this building, there was a massive spike in queries related to your name, your publication history, your social connections, your financial records, everything they need to build a psychological profile. Faith looked at the screen, watching the data flow in real time. Her name was at the center of a web that connected to hundreds of other nodes. They're profiling me right now. They're doing more than that. Look at this cluster here. Mike pointed to a section of the visualization. These are predictive models running scenarios. What happens if you publish the story? What happens if you don't? Which version of you is most susceptible to pressure? Which legal threats would be most effective? They're wargaming every possible outcome before you've even made a decision. That's not possible. You're telling me they have a computer that can predict human behavior with that level of accuracy? I'm telling you, they have a system that's been refined over billions of interactions, fed by data from 4.8 billion active users, trained on every click, every purchase, every conversation, every moment of every person's digital life. And yes, it can predict human behavior with terrifying accuracy. That's what the patent describes. That's what Project Themis weaponizes. And that's why Matthew had to disappear, because he found proof that the system works exactly as designed. Faith sat back down slowly. So, they know I'm going to publish this story? No. Mike closed the laptop. They know the probability that you'll publish it, and they're already deploying countermeasures. In the next 48 hours, you'll likely experience technical difficulties with your work accounts. Your editors might receive anonymous tips, questioning your credibility. Your sources for other stories might suddenly become unreachable. It will all seem like bad luck, technical glitches, normal professional friction, but it's not. It's the algorithm protecting itself. Then how do we fight it? Mike looked at her with an expression that was part determination, part resignation. We do something they can't predict, something so far outside their models that their algorithms can't account for it. We tell the truth, loudly, publicly, and we don't stop until everyone hears it, even if it costs us everything. Faith's phone buzzed. She looked down at the notification, and her face went pale. It was an email from her editor. Subject line: "We need to talk about your current assignment." The message had been sent 30 seconds ago. Victor Malone's system is already moving against Faith. What will her editor say? And can Mike and Faith expose the truth before they're both silenced? Faith stared at her phone, her finger hovering over the email. Should I open it? Open it. We need to know what we're dealing with. She tapped the screen and read silently. Mike watched her expression shift from concern to anger. My editor wants me to come in immediately. Says there are questions about my recent expense reports and some concerns about the editorial direction of this piece. He CC'd the legal department and HR. They're not even subtle anymore. They know we're close to exposing them, so they're accelerating the pressure. Faith looked up from her phone. 3 years I've worked there. Never a single problem with my reporting. And now, right when I'm about to break the biggest story of my career, suddenly there are accounting irregularities and editorial concerns. It's the playbook: discredit, isolate, eliminate. They did it to Matthew. They did it to Luna Stevens and the other journalists. They're doing it to you, right now. Mike's voice softened. And I'm sorry, Faith. I'm sorry that talking to me put you in their crosshairs. She set her phone down with deliberate force. Don't apologize. You didn't put me here. They did. And you know what? I'm tired of algorithms deciding what stories get told, which voices get heard, who gets to speak truth to power. If they want to come after me, let them, but they're going to have to do it in public, with everyone watching. What are you thinking? I'm thinking we don't wait 48 hours. We don't go through editors or legal departments or traditional channels. We stream this interview live, right now, unfiltered and unedited. We show them the patent. We walk through the Project Themis documents. We name names. Victor Malone, his company, the 127 cases, everything. And we let the public decide what's true? Mike smiled for the first time since the interview began. You realize that once you do that, there's no going back. Your career in traditional journalism might be over. My career in traditional journalism is already over. That email from my editor, that's them ending it for me. At least this way, I get to go out telling the truth instead of being quietly erased. Faith pulled out her phone and started setting up her live stream equipment. Besides, this isn't about my career. This is about the millions of people who have no idea they're being surveilled, predicted, manipulated, and controlled by systems designed to exploit them. Someone has to be their voice. The voice for the voiceless. Exactly. For the next 20 minutes, they worked in focused silence. Faith set up her professional streaming equipment, while Mike organized the documents, creating a visual presentation that would be impossible to dismiss. The patent, the Project Themis files, the case histories, the predictive models, everything laid out in a clear, undeniable pattern. Okay, Faith said, checking her camera angles one last time. We're ready to go live. Once I hit this button, we'll be broadcasting to anyone who wants to watch. Are you absolutely sure you want to do this? Mike thought about Matthew's warning. He thought about Luna, Stevens in prison. He thought about the 14 other victims whose lives had been systematically destroyed. He thought about the billions of people who had no idea their most intimate data was being weaponized against them. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Faith took a deep breath. Then let's give them something their algorithms can't predict. She pressed the button. The red recording light came on. They were live. Good afternoon. My name is Faith Gilbert, and what you're about to hear is going to change everything you think you know about privacy, technology, and justice in America. Sitting with me is Attorney Mike, who represents victims of what may be the largest systematic surveillance and manipulation scheme in human history. We have documents, we have evidence, and we have a story that powerful people don't want you to hear. So before they try to shut this down, we're going to tell you everything. Mike leaned forward, looking directly into the camera. 6 months ago, a man named Matthew Moore discovered a patent that proved big tech's personalized advertising is actually a weapon designed to control your behavior, predict your actions, and destroy anyone who threatens their power. That man is now in hiding, possibly in danger, because he dared to expose the truth. But his evidence is here, and today we're making sure the world sees it. As Mike began walking through the patent details on camera, Faith's phone started buzzing incessantly. Notifications flooded in. Messages from her editor. Calls from her legal department. Texts from colleagues warning her to stop. She silenced the phone and kept recording. Within 5 minutes, they had 10,000 viewers. Within 10 minutes, 50,000. The chat was exploding with comments, shares, reactions. People were downloading the documents in real time, verifying the information, spreading it across every platform. The algorithm had predicted many scenarios, but it hadn't predicted this. 2 people with nothing to lose, choosing truth over self-preservation, and finding an audience ready to listen. Mike was mid-sentence, explaining how Project Themis had corrupted judicial proceedings when his own phone buzzed. He glanced down at the screen. It was a text from an unknown number. Just 4 words. Matthew is coming home. He looked at Faith. She saw the message and nodded. They kept recording, because the truth, once spoken, can't be unspoken. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do against a system designed to predict and control you is to be unpredictable, to be brave, to be the voice that refuses to be silenced. The red light stayed on. The viewer count kept climbing. And somewhere in a boardroom in Silicon Valley, Victor Malone was watching his carefully constructed system face something it was never designed to handle. People who refuse to be afraid. The live stream is reaching millions. Matthew is coming back. But what will Victor Malone and his company do now that their secrets are exposed to the world? Will the truth be enough to stop them? Or is this just the beginning of an even bigger fight? Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time. So, if you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story.